Hey everyone, welcome back to What If History here. Alright, so you loved Napoleon with crypto and Rome with the internet, but today, we're going absolutely wild. Picture this: Vikings, the most feared warriors in medieval Europe. But instead of just longships and axes, they have drones. Yeah, military drones, reconnaissance drones, armed drones. This is gonna be insane. Let's jump in. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's the year 800 AD. Vikings are already terrifying, right? They show up in their longships, raid coastal villages, take treasure, and disappear before anyone can respond. The element of surprise was their biggest weapon. But here's the problem they faced. They were sailing blind. They didn't know what was waiting for them when they arrived. How many soldiers? What defenses? Where's the treasure stored? They literally just showed up and hoped for the best. Now imagine if they had drones, like modern military reconnaissance drones. Suddenly, a Viking raid isn't just a gamble anymore. They send drones ahead to scout the target. They know exactly where the guards are. They know which monastery has the most gold. They can see reinforcements coming from miles away. They have real-time intelligence. A Viking raid goes from risky adventure to military precision strike. And honestly, Europe would have been absolutely helpless against them. Because think about it, medieval armies relied on walls, guards, and hoping the Vikings didn't know their weaknesses. But with drones, Vikings know everything before they even leave their ships. This isn't just giving Vikings a small advantage. This is making them unstoppable. And that's just the beginning. Alright, so let's talk about what made Vikings so dangerous in the first place. Their ships. Viking longships were incredible. Shallow draft meant they could sail up rivers deep into Europe. Fast, maneuverable, perfect for hit-and-run tactics. But even with the best ships, they still had limitations. They couldn't see far. They couldn't track enemy fleets. And if they got caught in a bad storm or sailed into a trap, they were done. Now give them drones with GPS, weather monitoring, and surveillance capabilities. First of all, they never get lost again. They can map coastlines from the air. They can find new trade routes and raid targets that nobody else even knows about. Iceland, Greenland, maybe even North America, they discover everything faster. But here's the really scary part. Viking fleets become basically invisible to their enemies. English coastal defenses are set up to spot Viking sails on the horizon, right? But if Vikings can see you first with drones, they just avoid your defenses entirely. They find the unguarded beaches. They sail at night knowing exactly where to go. They coordinate attacks across multiple targets simultaneously because they have perfect communication. The English are sitting there going, why do the Vikings always know where we are, but we never see them coming? And the answer is, because they're playing a completely different game now. Viking naval supremacy just went from impressive to literally unbeatable. Okay, so here's something people don't talk about enough. Vikings weren't just physically dangerous. They were psychologically terrifying. There were literally prayers in medieval churches. From the fury of the Northmen, "Deliver us, O Lord." People were terrified of Vikings. And a huge part of that was the unpredictability. You never knew when they'd strike. Now imagine you're a medieval European villager, and you start seeing flying machines in the sky, mechanical birds with no one controlling them, watching you, following you. You don't understand what they are. Your priests are saying they're demons. Your lord says they're witchcraft. All you know is, when those things appear, Vikings show up within hours. And there's nothing you can do about it. This isn't just tactical advantage anymore. This is supernatural level fear. Vikings aren't just warriors now, they're mythical beings with impossible technology. And here's the thing. Vikings were very good at psychological warfare even without drones. They understood that fear was as powerful as any weapon. They'd deliberately attack in ways that created maximum terror. Now give them technology that medieval people literally cannot comprehend. The fear factor goes from, these warriors are dangerous, to these are agents of the apocalypse. Entire regions would surrender without a fight. Why even try to resist when your enemy has technology that seems like dark magic? So I gotta ask you, would you rather fight an enemy with better weapons, or an enemy who seems to have supernatural powers? Drop your answer below because that's genuinely a terrifying question. So here's the million-dollar question. If Vikings had drones, could medieval Europe have defended itself at all? In our real timeline, Vikings eventually got stopped through a combination of things, right? Coastal fortifications got better. Kingdoms unified and organized standing armies. Christianity spread to Scandinavia and Vikings settled down. Eventually, the Viking Age just kind of ended. But with drones, that whole timeline changes dramatically. First problem, fortifications don't work anymore. You build a castle to defend against Vikings? They just fly a drone over your walls, map your defenses, and find the weak spots. Castles were supposed to be safe havens. Now they're just expensive targets. Second problem, you can't catch them. Medieval armies are slow. They march on foot, maybe horses for knights. Vikings with drone reconnaissance. They're always 3 steps ahead. By the time you send troops to defend one coast, they've already hit 3 other locations. Third problem, you can't even find them to fight back. Want to launch a counterattack on Viking settlements? Good luck. They've got drones monitoring every approach. You'll never achieve surprise. But here's the really interesting part. Would this have been good for Vikings long term? Because think about it, if Vikings are too successful, too unstoppable, they might never settle down. In our timeline, Vikings eventually integrated into European society. They founded Normandy, ruled parts of England, became Christians. But if they're winning every battle, why would they ever stop raiding? Why would they ever settle? Do they just become permanent conquerors? And here's the darker possibility. Eventually, someone reverse engineers their drone technology. Maybe the Byzantines, maybe the Arabs, maybe the Chinese. And suddenly, everyone has drones. Then what? The Vikings went from having a monopoly on unstoppable technology to just being one player in a global arms race. Alright, so what can we actually learn from this crazy scenario? First lesson, technology doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you unpredictable. The Vikings with drones aren't just better Vikings. They're playing a completely different game that their enemies don't even understand. Second lesson, the fear of technology is sometimes more powerful than the technology itself. Medieval Europeans wouldn't just be scared of what drones can do, they'd be terrified of what they think drones can do. And third, military advantage is always temporary. Even if Vikings had a 100-year head start with drones, eventually someone else figures it out, and then your advantage disappears. Now here's the really interesting connection to today. We're living through this exact scenario right now with real drone technology. Modern military drones give massive advantages to whoever has them. Surveillance, precision strikes, zero risk to pilots. Just like our Viking scenario, it's not just about having better weapons, it's about having weapons your enemy doesn't understand yet. And just like we imagined with Vikings, the psychological impact is huge. Entire populations live under the constant awareness that drones could be watching them. That fear changes behavior even when no drones are actually present. So maybe the question isn't, what if Vikings had drones? Maybe it's, what are we doing with drones that people 1,000 years from now will look back on and think was insane? Because technology always feels normal to the people using it, but to everyone else, can look like magic, or witchcraft, or an unstoppable force of nature. The Vikings would have understood that perfectly. Alright everyone, that's it for today's alternate timeline. If you enjoyed imagining Vikings with military drones, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Next time, we're asking, what if Einstein had access to AI? That one's gonna blow your mind. Thanks for watching What If History Here, and I'll see you in the next timeline.